Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Whispers of the Unknown. I'm Gage Yost, and I'm joined by Kylie Cook. Kylie, how's it going?
Super great.
Awesome. Got a big smile on your face today. You ready to learn about some murder?
Oh yeah, born ready. My favorite pastime.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about the Black Dahlia murder of 1947.
Yes.
So let's just get right into the story then.
Let's just dive right in.
Perfect. The morning of January 15th, 1947 was dreary and chilly when Los Angeles housewife Betty Bersinger set off for a shoe repair shop with her 3-year-old daughter, Anne. On South Norton Avenue, they passed eerie abandoned lots overgrown with brush and weeds. Something white caught Betty's eye. Something white caught Betty's eye. At first, she thought it was a toss-aside mannequin, discarded perhaps.
Never just a mannequin.
Never just a mannequin.
Never a mannequin.
I'm going to assume it's a body, probably.
Probably.
Let's continue. Because it was broken in half. Then she realized the two halves were the body of a woman.
Oh.
Spooky.
Dun dun dun.
I was terribly shocked and scared to death, Betty says. She grabbed her daughter and rushed to the first house that had a phone. The woman that Betty and her daughter discovered would quickly become a household name as newspapers across the country detailed every twist and turn in the search for her elusive killer. Her name was Elizabeth Short, a young woman who had come to California hoping for stardom, only to achieve it after her gruesome death. It was those two elements, the glamorous Hollywood dreams and the lurid details of Elizabeth's murder, that catapulted the case into the public's consciousness like few others before it. The young woman had been sliced carefully in half, drained of her blood, and then posed in a bizarre spread eagle. A spread eagle. What would that be exactly?
Like, exposing her, bottom half.
Oh, oof.
Yeah. It's usually, when that's done, it's usually, to embarrass and, humiliate the person.
Sliced in half, though? Holy smokes.
Yeah, especially right through the torso.
Ugh.
You got a thing for torsos lately.
Yeah, I know.
And by lately, I mean just the one other episode.
If you haven't seen the first episode, we talked about the Cleveland torso murders.
Yeah.
So, a lot of cutting in half and
it's a
whatnot.
repeating pattern. Hope this isn't a hint of what's to come.
Yeah, and much like the Cleveland torso murders, the police suspected that the killer must have been a doctor. Because it was so, the bisection was so
Clean.
precise.
Yeah, probably. Or a butcher. Ooh.
Rope marks scarred her ankles, wrists, and throat, and the police believed that she had been hung upside down by her feet and tortured before her death.
Oh. Ooh.
Oof. Some of these people are crazy.
Yeah. People be wild.
Her mouth had also been slashed into a grotesque, too-wide smile.
Mm-hmm. I knew that.
Like the Joker, kinda?
Yeah.
Have you seen pictures or no?
I believe there are pictures, yeah. I know this case fairly, decently.
Okay. While I keep reading this, can you look up a picture for me so I can see that?
Yeah.
Los Angeles Times reported the victim of one of the city's most brutal killings, according to veteran detectives, the attractive brunette could have died from head wounds, a deep stab wound in the abdomen, frenzied slashings in the back, or from strangulation, investigators said. Jagged knife wounds also were found on the breasts and the left leg and running from the mouth across the face. Police were quickly able to identify the body. Fingerprints revealed that the murder victim was named Elizabeth Short and that she had been arrested for underage drinking in September 1943. Oh, goodness. I feel like I've seen that picture before.
Yeah, that's not...
That's bad.
That's brutal.
Anyway. So, yeah, police were quickly able to identify the body because she had been charged with an underage drinking charge in September of 1943. I wonder what the drinking age even was back then.
I think
17?
Back in the day, it was probably
16?
I don't think it was that young.
Not that
I think
young.
It was probably 18.
18? This is in the 40s, so I don't know. Up until the 70s, it was 18. I know that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Fun fact, my dad thought that the drinking ages still were different, varied from state to state, kind of like they do in the provinces in Canada.
But they kind of are, though.
The drinking ages in America?
Yeah. In Wisconsin, you could drink at any age if you're with a parent or
Well,
guardian.
yes.
Same with Montana, right? Or no?
Yeah, if you're above 18, I think.
Oh,
Like
okay.
your parents can order you a drink and whatnot, but but like you know what I mean. Like you can't
yeah.
go out and drink.
Yeah.
But my dad thought, he was like, "What's the drinking age in North Dakota?" And I'm like, "The same that
As
it is
everywhere else."
everywhere else." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "It's nationally like 21 years of age." And he's like, "Since when?" And I was like, "Girl, what?"
All right, back to the story here.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I like the tangents that we go
Okay.
off on.
Carry on.
Add some character.
Hmm.
Those who knew Elizabeth could not imagine how the vivacious girl they affectionately called Beth or Betty, had met such an appalling end. Elizabeth Short was born in Hyde Park, Massachusetts in June 1924 to Phoebe May Sawyer and Cleo Short. Even as a child, she stood out with her raven hair and gray-green eyes. Her small nose was slightly upturned. The only physical flaws noted in death were a few surgical scars, chewed fingernails, and bad lower teeth. Possibly a tobacco chewer. How does this connect to the story?
Did the book say that?
Yeah, it does say that.
Oh.
Well, it doesn't say she's a tobacco chewer.
I was gonna say, I feel
Bad,
like
bad bottom row teeth?
that probably just happens.
I don't know.
You know,
I don't know.
like just like normal.
Anyway, she always wanted to be an actress, her mother said, and she was ambitious and beautiful and full of life.
And would not be chewing tobacco if those were her aspirations.
Yeah, that's probably a good point. She had mood swings, but that wasn't really unusual, is what her mom says. Which is, yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I don't know. That's just what it says.
What do you mean by mood swings?
Oh my goodness, you're funny. Her father lost most of his life savings in the 1929 market crash and abandoned his family the following year.
That happened to my father too in the 30s.
Anyway, her mother in the 30s. Yeah, that's funny. Phoebe was left to raise her 5 daughters alone. The fatherless family moved to Medford, Massachusetts, where Phoebe worked as a bookkeeper. Elizabeth struggled with asthma and recurring bronchitis, and a suggestion that she should have moved to a more hospitable climate led her to happily drop out of high school in 1943 and head to California to pursue her acting dreams.
You go, girl.
At one point, Elizabeth looked set to marry a major in the U.S. Air Force named Matthew Michael Gordon. However, he died in a plane crash in 1945.
Ooh, that's unfortunate.
By 1947, Elizabeth, now 22, had made something of a home for herself in San Diego. She wrote to her mother once a week, was working as a waitress, appeared occasionally as a movie extra, and auditioned for acting jobs whenever she could. She loved to see and be seen in the movie colony's spotlights. Her roommates and friends told police that Elizabeth had several suitors.
I bet she was a beautiful young lady.
Yeah. The media frenzy that engulfed Elizabeth Short's death, I cannot read today, cannot be understated. The case itself took on a life of its own, commented Los Angeles police detective Brian Carr, who oversaw the case between 2000 and 2009. Wow, that's...
Yeah, we jumped forward.
Yeah, about 60 years, 70 years.
Something.
Crazy.
So crazy.
It was front page news in all the local papers every day. Just 2 days after her murder, reporters began calling Elizabeth the Black Dahlia, a sensational moniker bestowed in part as a nod to The Blue Dahlia, a popular thriller movie starring Alan Ladd and Veronica Lake. You know those actors?
The names don't ring any bells.
Veronica Lake sounds familiar. And because of Elizabeth's dark hair and fondness for black clothing, her boyfriends... Her boyfriends were also credited with giving her the nickname.
Boyfriends, plural.
Plural.
She had it happening.
Multiple.
You go, girl.
Every development in the case... Not you go, girl.
What?
That's messed up.
Everyone was dating around back in the day.
Were they?
Yeah,
Huh.
I'm sure.
Every development in the case, no matter how fruitless, seemed to warrant breathless coverage. When Elizabeth's friend said she had bragged about being friends with the famous film actress Ann Todd, the wire service, United Press International, announced that police would question the British star. Ooh. Todd told police she had never met the slain starlet.
Interesting.
Claiming that she never met, so maybe she's a little bit of a liar then. This Elizabeth. This Black Dahlia. One suspect after another was arrested, each getting a guilty man's treatment for the day. The last person to have seen Elizabeth alive was a 25-year-old married salesman named Robert Red Manley. Pretty cool name. He had been dating Elizabeth.
He was married.
I thought it was okay, though.
Not if you're married.
Oh, there's a difference then, huh?
If you're dating around and you're just dating around, then that's fine. You can be dating, like, I think you can date probably a couple guys if you're just, just out trying, testing the waters. But if you're married, you're definitely not allowed to date. Are you kidding me?
He had been dating Elizabeth and, according to her roommates, had threatened her. He had driven her from San Diego to Los Angeles on January 9th, 6 days before the discovery of her body, and had dropped her off at Hollywood's Biltmore Hotel. Newspapers nationwide ran a photo of Manley taking a polygraph lie detector test, which he passed twice. Yeah, but you can't really use that as evidence, though.
Yeah, and polygraph tests, I think, you can study how to beat it.
Yeah.
They're not super reliable.
Especially back in the day, probably.
Especially back in the day.
Especially. When his alibi for January 14th and 15th checked out, he was released from custody. Another promising suspect was 29-year-old Army Corporal Joseph Dumais, who also claimed to have been dating Elizabeth. A lot of boyfriends. Interest in him was piqued because he said that he blacked out after their date, which according to him took place just 5 days before her body was found. So he had no memory of what happened to her. On February 8th, 1947, the Los Angeles Herald newspaper proclaimed that Dumais had confessed to the murder. However, when police checked his confession against the known facts, it was revealed to be false. And Dumais was dispatched to a psychiatrist. Sightings of Elizabeth in the days prior to her murder all proved false. Her movements between January 9th and the discovery of the body on January 15th remained a mystery. Huh.
That's strange.
It is strange. Especially since she had so many friends and boyfriends,
Yeah.
Makes me think it was probably one of them. Having drawn a blank so far, by June 1947, the police had interviewed and released 75 possible suspects.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
75?
That's crazy. The investigation shifted focus to the women in Elizabeth's life. Could the killer have been the girlfriend or wife of one of Elizabeth's lovers? Indeed, Elizabeth's sex life was the undercurrent of many stories, with reporters and officials alike dwelling on the subject and passing judgment.
If that matters that she got murdered.
I mean, it could be related to it.
They don't need to pass judgment. They could just be like, maybe this guy's a suspect and he would have a reason to do so, but, it's not, she doesn't deserve to be murdered because she's promiscuous. Like, what?
Well, I also feel like they're saying that it could be the wives.
Yeah.
That's why they're talking about it so much, is she was involved in a lot of relationships, and the wives probably found out.
That's true, but, personally, if I was a wife of... Never mind.
No, please.
Let's not get into
Please continue.
Well, I feel like people are too quick to judge the person that is the other woman, And it's like, no, girl, hold your man accountable. I'm not seeing I don't know.
You're saying she's attacking the wrong person, basically?
Yeah. Well, I also don't think a lady would have gone to the lengths of murdering and having a person.
That's sexist. You don't think a lady would do that?
No, because we're ladies and we're polite, and I don't think we would do that.
Oh, okay then.
Yeah,
So they released 75 possible suspects, like I said. So here's something pretty crazy.
I'm ready.
This is a whisper from the unknown.
I'm ready.
The killer then reached out to the police.
Bet.
Sending a letter created from words and letters cut from various newspapers and magazines.
Okay, it literally could have been anyone.
The correspondence read, "Here, !" is Dahlia's belongings. Enclosed were Elizabeth's birth certificate, her address book, and other personal papers.
Oh, well, that holds some weight.
Well, if they have the birth certificate, then they're definitely close to them if they've been in their house and stuff, right? Or maybe they could have just broken in.
I don't know, but would that be something you would keep on your person back in the day?
I doubt it.
I don't know. I like to cart my birth certificate around whenever I need it. You never know.
You just keep it in your back pocket?
Yeah, it's framed too, so it looks very official when I hold it up.
Her address book and other personal papers. A few days later, more of her belongings, a shoe and a bag, were found in a trash dump. Manley confirmed that both had belonged to her. The killer then sent a letter to the Examiner telling police where he would turn himself in. However, he never showed up. He sent another letter. Have changed my mind. You would not give me a square deal. Dahlia killing was justified.
Somehow I doubt that.
Huh. Yeah. However, several innocent people, both men and women, did turn themselves in.
What is up with people like doing
credit?
False confessions?
I know, it makes no sense. They you're willing to serve the rest of your life in jail, or be put to death.
Like, I get people like being twisted enough to like want some type of attention and being like, ooh, like I did this, but like actually like I don't know why you would want to risk turning yourself in.
Makes no sense. By 1996, police had fielded about 500 confessions.
I mean, I guess people didn't really have much to do back then, so this was probably their form of entertainment.
It's kind of crazy that up until 1996, they were still confessing.
Deathbed confessions, man.
Yeah. Several of those making false confessions were charged with obstruction of justice.
As they should.
Yeah. In January 1949, a bellhop named Leslie Dillon contacted Dr. DeRiver, interesting name, saying he wanted to discuss the murder for a book he hoped to write. DeRiver immediately grew suspicious. Dillon had previously worked as a mortician's assistant, meaning he knew how to drain blood from a body, as he had done with Elizabeth's corpse. Or as had been done with Elizabeth's corpse. Without prompting, Dillon revealed details of the crime which police have never been able to explain, said LAPD detective Harry Hansen. After questioning, Dillon implicated his friend, Jeff Connors, whom police interviewed but released. Oh, I'm so weird. I don't know why I talk like that. Anyway.
Cut yourself some slack, man.
Investigators refocused on Dillon, their best suspect yet, they claimed. And he was set to appear in late 1949 before a grand jury. However, the case was dismissed when a judge ruled that Dillon had been illegally detained. That's stupid. If he did it, it's stupid. The British author P.I.U.
What?
Pew?
Can I see?
P.I.U.
P.U.
P.U. Eat well. Presented a theory in 2017 that Dillon had orchestrated the Black Dahlia murder with his friend Connors and Mark Hansen, a local nightclub and cinema owner. Hansen was known to frequently bed chorus girls and wannabe actresses, despite being married. He was linked to Elizabeth because he had given her a place to stay in the months before her death. In addition, an address book bearing Mark Hansen's name was sent to police by someone claiming to be Elizabeth Short's murderer. His name was embossed on it, but Elizabeth had been using it herself. Eatwell suggested that Hansen had connections with the police department, connections that had enabled the trio to get away with murder. More than 70 years after the crime, investigators continued to wade through countless theories. Most can be discounted, but one of the most intriguing comes from a former homicide detective who claims to have figured out the killer's identity, his own father.
Oh, I've heard of this.
What have you heard?
A little more than that.
A little more than that. Los Angeles Police Department veteran Steve Hodel began suspecting his father, a respected Los Angeles doctor, after his stepmother gave him a small photo album that belonged to the elder Hodel after his death in 1999. The book, which measured just 3 inches square, contained black and white photographs, many of which Steve Hodel recognized. Then he came upon 2 images of a black-haired woman he did not know. After painstakingly comparing facial contours and counting freckles, Steve Hodel became convinced that the photos were of the notorious Black Dahlia. His own father. That's kind of crazy. really be your own people sometimes. I loved my father and respected him, said Steve. His blood flows through my body. He gave me being. But now I have come to look at my father as a true Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Hodel laid out his suspicions in a best-selling book, Black Dahlia Avenger, a genius for murder. According to case files released 50 years after the slaying, Dr. George Hodel was indeed a suspect in Elizabeth's murder. Police electronically surveilled his home for 3 weeks in 1950. Soon after the Black Dahlia case was mentioned in court, the Black Dahlia case was mentioned in court when Hodel was tried for committing incest with his daughter.
Oh, icky.
Gosh. He was acquitted of the charge.
Boo, incest.
Yeah, but he was let go.
Well.
Transcripts of overheard conversations included Hodel saying, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia. Supposing. They couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead." At another point, Hodel also suggested that he might have killed his secretary. Why police didn't pursue Hodel is unclear. Officials have repeatedly declined to comment because the Black Dahlia investigation, while ice cold, is still technically open. "I don't have the time to either prove or disprove Hodel's investigation," said LAPD Detective Brian Carr in 2006. "I am too busy working on active cases." Hodel was not the first to accuse his own father of being the infamous killer. In 1995, a woman named Janice Knowlton released a book called Daddy Was the Black Dahlia Killer. She said that her deceased father, George, not only killed Elizabeth, but that she had witnessed the murder as a 10-year-old child.
Why is everyone's dad's just supposedly killing people?
I don't know. She claimed she had been brought to Elizabeth's house during her father's affair with a raven-haired starlet.
What?
And that police documents indicating that they had sought a man named George as a suspect further implicated her father.
Could you imagine going to have an affair with a lady
and bringing
your kid? That's a whole nother level of messed up. Bad
crazy.
Bad dad.
Well, he also murdered someone, so...
That's also...
well, that's what they think, at least.
Supposedly.
Yeah. After Knowlton died, her stepsister insisted that her memories were faulty and her book was, quote-unquote, trash. Another doctor was put forward as a possible suspect. Larry Harnisk, a Los Angeles Times copy editor, suggested that a man named... Oh, excuse me, I'm reading this terribly. Larry was not the suspect. Larry was a Los Angeles Times copy editor, and he suggested that a man named Walter Bailey could have been the killer. Bailey was a surgeon who, until he left his wife 4 months before the murder, had lived 1 block from the lot in which Elizabeth's body was dumped. Harnisk became convinced Bailey was a viable suspect after learning that one of the doctor's daughters was good friends with Elizabeth's sister, Virginia. According to Harnisk, Bailey left his wife for another woman, a fellow doctor named Alexandra von Partica. Alexandra allegedly ended up blackmailing the doctor because she knew a secret about him, possibly that he was the Black Dahlia killer. Dun, dun, dun. Interesting. According to one of the countless websites dedicated to tracking the case, at least 8 men are still labeled people of interest in one fashion or another. It's so interesting that they still are looking for the killer that long after. I'm sure they aren't anymore because, well,
I don't know. I mean, there's been some cases that,
the suspect will be in their 90s or 100s by now.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess there's been cases that have been solved way long after.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Wasn't the Golden State Killer in the last couple years?
I think so. I know the Zodiac Killer was just confirmed a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that
happened a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, and then this was way longer ago, but
yeah,
I don't know. Technology can do amazing things.
Yeah. According to one of the countless websites dedicated to tracking the case, I already said that. They include the Los Angeles Times publisher Norman Chandler, whom some allege had dated Elizabeth, a medical doctor named Patrick O'Reilly, who allegedly met Elizabeth through nightclub owner Mark Hansen. Mark Hansen's pretty tied up in a lot of these, I feel like. And he was once convicted of a sexual assault against his secretary.
Boo.
And finally, an unidentified dark-haired man pictured with Elizabeth in an undated photo found in the trunk of her car. With today's advances in forensic science, it is feasible that evidence in Elizabeth's case could have been tested to get a solid new lead and find the killer once and for all. However, that is no longer possible. Over the years, physical evidence in one of the highest profile cases in California's history has gone missing.
What?
Unless it is somehow recovered, the Black Dahlia mystery is destined to endure. Huh.
How does one just lose evidence from one of like the most prolific cold cases in America?
Yeah, that doesn't really make sense to me.
Something's fishy.
That is really odd. But that's all I have for the story. Do you have any other comments or anything on here?
I don't know.
What are your thoughts?
You know, I don't have any.
You don't have any?
No. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I think it's crazy that how many suspects came forward, but how many suspects there were and how many like false confessions they had, over 500.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy that people are like that starved for fame.
Yeah. Pretty messed up.
All right, well, I guess we'll just wrap it up then. Thanks for listening to the second episode of the Whispers of the Unknown podcast. We'll be coming back probably in a couple days to make another one, and let's see, what should we do it on, honey?
I know John Benet Ramsey's in there, and I don't love that case, but that's just that is such a
Christmas murder.
Yeah, that one's really sad.
All right, well, we'll do that one next week, the John Benet Ramsey murder.
Cool beans.
All right. Thanks again for listening, you guys. We'll be back in a couple days with another one.